We have former Speaker of the House, Fox News contributor Newt Gingrich is with us. Sir, welcome. Let's get your overall thoughts on this today.
Well, first, I think it's a very sad day because I think Kevin McCarthy is one of the most talented leaders I've ever worked with. I think that he accomplished an amazing amount for having a small majority and having to take on both the Senate and the White House. And I think this is really a tragic outcome. This was a leader who both gained seats in 2020, gained seats in 2022, increased the number of women members, increased the number of veterans, increased the number of minority members, and he had a vision for a better future. And let's be clear here, Sean. If the University of Georgia Bulldogs, who are the #1 team in the country right now, if you started a game and 4 of the members of the offensive squad decided they were actually on the Alabama side and began tackling your own people, you probably get them off the field. Well, think about what we saw today. 4% decided they were so morally superior, so intellectually pure, so patriotically better, that they would side with the Democrats, and that's what they did, in order to defeat the entire Republican House caucus. 96% of the Republicans voted for McCarthy. 4% voted against him. From my position as a longtime Republican activist, they're traitors. All 8 of them should, in fact, be primaried. They should all be driven out of public life. What they did was to go to the other team to cause total chaos. We ought to be focusing on Biden. We ought to be focusing on the economy. We ought to be focusing on the border. Instead, you're going to get a week or 10 days of the media focusing on Republican disarray. It's an astonishingly destructive behavior by a handful of egocentric people who think they're superior to 96% of the conference.
Look, I do think on Kevin's side, let me analyze this more than anything else. It is hard to appreciate the very tiny majority that Kevin McCarthy was working with. You have moderate to liberal Republicans, 18 of them, in districts that voted for Joe Biden. They want to keep their jobs, so they're not going to be as conservative on a lot of these issues. So it's hard to bring a small caucus like that together. It's like herding cats. I wouldn't want the job. You couldn't pay me to do that job. There's no amount of money I'd take for that job. On the other hand, I do have a little frustration with Kevin, too. Why didn't he, as promised, go forward with the appropriations bills, regular order, which, by the way, you brought back when you were Speaker, that led to the first and last balanced budgets we had in, decades on both ends. So you found a way to get that done. Why did they go away for August when they should have been? He knew this fight was coming. Why did they go away?
Look, let me answer at 2 very different levels. First of all, the House, through regular order, has passed 70% of the government in appropriations. The Senate has passed 0. So Kevin actually was on a track, and in the next 2 weeks, assuming they can get around to it, they will actually finish all of the appropriations. I think that was just baloney. Second, all of these 18 Republicans in the Biden districts, they actually voted for the 2 conservative continuing resolutions you described earlier. They voted for them, even though they were very conservative. Who killed them? The hard right. Why did the hard right kill them? Because they were against any continuing resolution. Well, if you didn't want the government closed, if you didn't want the military not to be paid, if you didn't want the Border Patrol not to be paid, and the hard right says to you, I ain't doing nothing, what are you going to do? And Kevin did what you had to do, what I would have done, frankly, in his case. But it wasn't the 18 Biden districts that was a problem.
That's true.
It was the hardcore, hard right people. And those hard right people ought to go back home and explain, why did they think this was better? No, but they need to be held to their feet to the fire. Why did they think it was better to beat 2 solid, conservative, continuing resolutions that, as you pointed out, includes the border, includes deep spending cuts, did everything they claimed they're for? You know why they did it? Because ultimately Matt Gaetz, who hates, and let's be clear, he hates Kevin McCarthy, was determined
no doubt about it,
to find a way to get to today.
Let me be very clear.
And I think it's disgraceful, and I hope they expel him from the conference.
I would have gone along. You had Byron Donalds, Freedom Caucus member, Scott Perry, Freedom Caucus member, Chip Roy, who'll be on the show tonight, Freedom Caucus member. You know, they had two separate plans they put together, and you are 100% right. They were voted down by the conservatives. That would have been the perfect bridge to get to, number one, have cuts, have border security, cuts in spending, and get us to the Holy Grail, which was the appropriations bills that would have been completed. That, to me, was the answer. And no, they went against it. I don't know why.
Right. But consider, well, you do know why. Consider, the moderates you described all voted for these very tough, very conservative bills. It was the hard right that voted against them. And people back home ought to take a look at how their member voted and ask, are you just terminally stupid? Do you prefer to have everything screwed up? And in terms of the 8 people who voted today with the Democrats, and let's be clear, they're not Republicans. They shouldn't, frankly, I wouldn't, if I were Speaker, they wouldn't be in the conference. I'd say to them, you prove to me that you're a loyal Republican, because the conference ought to be for Republicans.
Well, then Hakeem Jeffries is Speaker. That doesn't work either.
Well, Hakeem will take the speakership if you give up the investigation of Biden, if you give up the effort to cut spending, if you give up the effort to stop regulations, if you give up the fight against woke policy. I mean, he's available, and maybe these 8 guys would be more comfortable being with Hakeem Jeffries and that totally insane policy rather than pretending that they're Republicans.
They better get this fixed fast. The patience of the American people will run out very quickly. Speaker Gingrich, thank you.